Pushrod Fury. Hey, Pushrod Fury here. I thought I'd give you guys an update on what's going on with the XS750. I picked this up back in mid-May, and I've been working on it during the weekends and evenings and COVID to keep my mind occupied and give me something to do. You know, good sense of accomplishment on the motorcycle front. And so anyway, you guys seen some of the videos, a little bit of a journey to get this bike from what it was to where it is now, which is a rideable bike. It's not perfect. It needs definitely needs a little bit more attention. A tiny little oil leak to take care of. But in that journey, we've got a lot of things kind of uncovered, and you can see there's the bike there. And I thought it would be worth kind of going over some of these things, and I'll take the camera off me and I'll put it on the bike and kind of point out some of the things that we worked on and some of the challenges. So when I first took delivery of the bike, luckily I was lucky enough to have the guy selling it. I won't even call him previous owner. He just kind of held it in a shed and never worked on it. But he delivered it, and what I started with is just cleaning. I think that's the number one thing to do, is just clean the bike, whether it's complete basket case or whatever. Go through it and give it a good cleaning, and that's gonna get you closer to the bike, like physically, so you can see the defects, you can see what may have been messed around with, and see the things, help you start to prioritize your approach to getting the bike back together again, getting it running, or starting a restoration. And I've never done a full restoration, like factory specs. I've never done that before. But I've certainly got a few bikes from, almost basket case to roadworthy, and I enjoy it. So anyway, start with the cleaning. We did that. You saw, you polish up the chrome. Originally, all the chrome was just completely rusted, and I love the aluminum foil and mild salt water technique, where you just kind of scrub away at it, and you can see the chrome. Maybe not win like a Pebble Beach award, but looks pretty good. And so we did that, got the chrome kind of sparkly, and that also got me to see some of the things that were missing and wrong. So that led me to the electrical, and it's underneath that panel is where I found the first problem, which was severed wire to the tail light, which was repaired, and then also spark plug wires were missing. I tried to put it back together, and I went through some of this stuff, but the spark plug wires were complete garbage. The caps were not the right resistance, and I didn't really know that much about these resistor style caps, but it turns out you really need to have really tight tolerance between the three spark plug caps. You really want them to be within like 100 ohms of resistance of the targeted 5,000 ohms. So anyway, took care of those by buying a set from Cedar Grove Motors on eBay. The guy makes them by hand. He sorts all the caps to make sure they're within 100 ohms of each other, and then he puts together these wires with only silicone outer sheet and copper core spark plug wires. So they're really high quality. They're not going to give you a problem. They're not going to deteriorate too quickly. I guess over 40 years anyway. So he did that. The other thing is to get fuel to the bike, and I went through some of these things, but you can see if you're into this, I've got the manual petcox on there, and I didn't want to have the diaphragms. I wanted to be able to physically turn the gas off, and that's what that affords you to do, and not rely on the diaphragms, which will eventually fail. So we did that. The other thing is, before even attempting to start this thing, is change all the fluids. So I made sure the engine oil was changed, new oil filter, all the gear oil. And that's also when I made mistakes. I put I missed the washer that goes in the fuel filter housing. I'll go over here and show you, but that's the, sorry, just oil filter housing right there. and there's a oil filter, spring, and washer, and I only found the washer after I dumped the waste oil out. So anyway, replaced all the fluids. I also didn't do a good job rinsing the gas tank out, and in hindsight I should have done that. I should have rinsed it really well. So I carried some varnish over from the tank into the through the carbs and everything. So that took a couple of tanks of gas to kind of get clean. The other thing is the carburation and air intake. I did a little part of my video where I explained the air filters, why they were wrong. The ones that came with it, they were blocking the intake. So I replaced it with K&N. I always liked K&N, had them on my bike in the 90s. They seem to work just fine. You just need to keep them clean and re-oil them. So you do that about once a year. The other part of this journey is to get the carbs right. And these carbs had a lot of problems. Didn't have any broken parts inside, thank goodness. So I started with a rebuild kit, and I upgraded the main jet to a 145. The stock is a 130, and K&N recommended it going up about 10 to 15% on your main jet. So I did that. The bike fired right up when I had the carbs put back together, but then rapidly problems started to precipitate. One of the floats failed, the brass floats sprung a leak, which meant the carburetor's flooded and there's gas pouring everywhere. I remedied that with some plastic floats from Mike's XS. And again, all the stuff is on my webpage. You can access the full shopping list. You can watch all the videos. Everything's there for you. And so then I put it all back together again. It was running great. I had a beautiful gold color on the headers. And then all of a sudden one of my headers turned purple, which immediately tells me it's overheating, it's running lean. And that's when I reminded myself I should have replaced the boots to the carburetors. Now I had ordered new boots early in the project because I figured, cracks in the boots would be bad. The problem was they got lost in the mail and I got impatient. And so that can get the better of you. You start to get impatient, start to take shortcuts, you start to develop bigger problems. So luckily I got the replacement boots in, got these dialed in, got it running, and started doing test rides, 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles to get it right. However, on my first big night out, which is an ice cream night, I went out with in the photograph with the Yamaha XS750, and my bike died. And one of my favorite expressions, it started stopping, then it stopped starting, and battery was dead. So I ran through the diagnosis on that and found my rectifier was bad, and checked the other components of the charging system, which are here. And I'll make a separate video on how to do that, but it was really frustrating because the rectifier tested bad, so I replaced it. The field coil tested good, the stator coils tested good, but I couldn't get the bike to charge. And it turns out what had happened is I sort of hit a roadblock, couldn't progress. I made a post in the XS750 group on Facebook, or Yamaha Triples group, I forget the name of it, but anyway. And someone said, oh yeah, check to make sure you've got 12 volts at all the brown wires. And I checked, and sure enough, one of the brown wires didn't have 12 volts with the key on. And I looked on the wiring harness wiring diagram, and sure enough, that should be 12 volts. And that's when I started my hunt, and I found the severed wire, and I was able to repair that. It immediately charged the field coil, which of course made a magnetic field, which then excited the stator coils, which then produced AC current, which was able to be converted into DC voltage. And part of this journey was I never want that to happen again without me knowing about it. And I happened to see this video from Alan Milliard, where he works on vintage bikes, And so I replaced my headlight failure indicator with a display, an LED display voltmeter. And so when it's running, it produces about 14 volts, 14.2 volts. So that's fantastic. I made a video about that, but I accidentally deleted it, so I'm making another one. But this is it. And so, again, you know, went through the fuel system, went through the fluids, made sure the fluids are right in the final drive, the mid-gear, the engine, new fork oil. Of course, the thing also has to stop, right? So, gosh, I almost forgot this. It needed brakes all the way through. So I had to rebuild the front calipers. I replaced the brake lines with Galfer stainless steel lines. This is the black outer coating, so they look good. New brake pads. In the back, I did the same thing and ran into a couple of challenges. One was the master cylinder. It was rebuilt incorrectly by the previous owner, and I didn't know that, so when I went to rebuild it, I simply took it apart, laid out the parts in the order they came out, and reassembled it the same way. And it turns out they put the main seal in there backwards, which the master cylinder will not function. It's extremely frustrating. Finally figured that out, got that corrected. And I also noticed other people on the Facebook group were making the same mistake, and so I shared that with them and it fixed that up, so that was pretty good. The other thing was the front master cylinder was shot, but in my box of parts I had this. It's a Taiwanese master cylinder. It seems to work fine. I hooked it all up, works great, but I may go back to a stock one. I'm not sure just yet. That might be on the to-do list. Another thing that was a bit of a surprise was the fuel cap. Again, the previous owner, I guess, wanted to open it, and you can see where they pried it open. They stuck the screwdriver here and they bent backwards, and it bent all the parts inside. So I had a heck of a time. I had to get I had to buy a replacement gas cap and then start taking parts out of it to get it to function. I needed this piece. This came out of a Too Fast Moto gas cap. So did the new seal. I just cannibalized it off of a gas cap that I ordered that happened to be wrong. And then this pin was crooked. I had to straighten this out. It's not exactly perfect. I had to do all that just to get a seal, because I was out on one of my test rides. I filled the tank up and gas just was pouring out of the gas cap every time I went on a corner, which of course is extremely dangerous. So I had to take corrective measures for that. But yeah, I went through the brakes, made sure they're perfect. Gas cap now seals, no problem. Did all the lubrication, lubricated the steering stem bearings. Like I said, talked about the fork oil. The two things I need to do, the three things I need to do now are wheel bearings, so front and rear wheel bearing lubrication, and then the pivot, the swing arm pivot bearing lubrication. And I think I'll be completely done with maintenance on the bike. That should pretty much do it. Everything seems to be functioning. All the lights work, horn works, starter motor works. And I got the bike with 3,400 miles. And now, what can we get? Right at 3,700. So I put 300 miles on it. And so I guess this is the 300 mile checkup. And I've got some video footage. I got some video footage that I hope you really enjoy. So there's the bike, and we took it out on about 165 mile ride on the weekend, and it performed very well. So this bike's got a second life after sitting since 1983 and being hacked apart and neglected ever since, until it convinced me to adopt it for a while. So anyway, again, it's not perfect. I don't restore motorcycles. I just like to make them run and look good. You also notice got a new set of Dunlop 404s. We're able to install those. Actually did it ourselves and balanced them ourselves. So for 150 bucks, got a brand new set of tires on it, and they handled great on that long trip. So anyway, enjoy the footage. Some short footage of the bike. It's extremely loud. I can start it. I mean, everyone wants to hear it start. So gotta put these on reserve because I'm almost out of gas. Can fire it up. Off of there. Well, there she is. Thanks for joining me on sort of this revival of the neglected XS750, and hope you tune back in and watch some of the other projects and watch the continued story for this bike. Thanks again, and if you like what you see, please subscribe and like the video, share it with your friends. Thanks.